Well, hello. My name is Mark Albright, and I am an MG enthusiast. And by no means am I an MGB expert, but I have a 1974 MGB GT that I am in the process of putting a GM 3.4 liter V6 in. I'm doing the conversion. A little bit of background about myself, how I got involved in MGs. At a very young age, my dad inherited a 1953 MG TD from his grandfather. And during the course of time, dragging me to car shows, being involved with watching him tinker and get to ride an MG, I eventually latched onto the MG British sports car. Fast forward several years into adult life, and I acquired a 1972 MGB Roadster. So I still have my dad's 53 TD. I have a 72 Roadster that's pretty much a daily driver, a very decent car, a lot of fun to drive. I've done some work on it, just tinkering here and there. This is my first project car, and I love the GT. I love the concept of having a coupe, and always thought about, experimented and researched doing some performance upgrades. So I've chosen to do a V6 conversion with the T5 General Motors transmission. The drivetrain that is going into this is out of a 95 Camaro. I purchased the Camaro relatively cheap. It wasn't running very well, but I did drive it to this shop, and as I got it running, I wanted to get it running good, running right, to make sure it was relatively healthy before I pulled it out of the car. So I did that, and then I pulled the engine and transmission out of the vehicle and scrapped the rest of the car. So what you're going to see here is a V6 and transmission assembly that I pulled out of the Camaro, stripped everything off of it, and through the V6 conversion kit that I purchased, I have put on just the necessary parts to do a test fit, because I've researched the internet. I've seen where there's been some great V6 conversions done, but they're always after the fact or in the very beginnings. And I just want to chronicle some of the things that I'm going through, some of the body modifications, different aspects of how I'm going to get it in there and how it's going to go in. It's a very complete kit, and there's just some things that needs to be addressed before you can call it done or even set it in and say it's in place. And I'm finding that as I go, nothing real complicated, but I want to chronicle it because, like I said, my research on the internet, I've not seen what I'm about to show you. It always seems to be a finished product, not something in process. So I'm going to point out some details, some things I'm doing, just pointers, if you will, that might help somebody somewhere down the road to do this same conversion. And I'll get started, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done already and explain to you what I'm going to do, and then try and make some videos on that. Okay, well, I'm going to get started by showing you a little bit of the car that it's going in. And if you're familiar with MGs, MGB GTs, none of this is going to be earth-shattering or very special to you, but just to give you an idea of what I'm working with. This was a complete car. Everything you see that has been taken off the car, I have taken off the car. I'm tearing it down to the point so that all the body work can be done on it. The interior was complete. This was a 100% complete car. It was not running. It had been sitting for literally years, just about a street off the beach. So it does show signs of rust in a lot of places. There is going to be some body work required, but I have all my panels to finish this project now. I've got really good doors. I've got new quarter panels, new fenders, but yep, this is my shell. This is my starting point. And like I said, this motor and transmission was pulled directly out of a Camaro and parts taken off of it necessary. So as you can see, everything down to the old crusty aluminum water pump, pulleys, everything. This motor ran great when I took it out. My guys in the shop were encouraging me to do a burnout in the Camaro before I pulled it out. So I satisfied them, and we made some smoke off that Camaro before we pulled it out. But I want to just go over a few things that I've done. Let me see if I got a light to help this situation. So the first thing when you're going into this, know that there's some things you're going to do that afterwards there's really no turning back. And the biggest thing that there's no turning back on, if you notice, if you're familiar with the MGB motor mounts on the frame, they're both the same on the Roadster and on the GT, there is a metal plate that is literally welded to the frame rail, and that is this piece. So this piece has to be cut off, gently and gingerly cut off to get it off of the frame, and then a little bit of smoothing and grinding, because the new motor mounts sit right on top of the frame, and you use the bolts for the front suspension cradle that is what it bolts to. So that's the first thing with this, is that you cut the motor mounts off the frame rail, which, you know, takes some grinding, some cutting, not really heavy, but you want to be precise. You don't want to cut into the frame, do any unnecessary cutting, keep it clean, keep it neat, and then you can bolt the mounts on in place. Because right now, like I said, this is just completely a test fit. I want to get this in, do all the modifications to the body, anything that needs to be touched, modified, and be done with it, so that when my body work's all done, engine compartment is ready, the motor can go in, there'll be no fidgeting or fitting it, it will just set in the way I want to. Now, one thing, up on the top side, if you notice that on this side, there is a lot of space for the header, and the headers that come with the kit fit in there really nicely. These are the headers. So, like I said, on the passenger side, it fits in really nicely. On the driver's side is a different story. There's definitely some metal modification that needs to take place, and I'll show you what I've done so far and what needs to be done. When you set this header in place, it does set in real nicely, just to the point of touching. So as you can see, when this is bolted up, it hits the body down there. This piece right here, the rear studs or bolts, the holes don't line up because it's making contact with the body. So there's going to be a little bit of body modifications that need to take place, and to get that to fit right. So what I've done up to this point is I did a little hammering, just a very little bit down in here for the clearance, but then I realized up here that I don't want to hammer this. And I'll tell you why I don't want to hammer it, is because right behind this, back here, is the bolt that runs through for the gas pedal pivot. And that gas pedal pivot, it's shanked inside there, you know, with a spacer, if you're familiar with that. And I don't want it to be distorted or deformed. So what I've done is, if you can see this, is I've taken my cutter and I've ground a relief in it and brought it all the way down. And so what I'm gonna do is, when I get the motor out, now that I know what my space needs to be, I'm going to bring this metal over and weld this back. And I might cut this a little bit bigger just to give myself some more space, because I've got the room inside there to do this. But a relief across the top here, and cut this gap out here so that this can be brought together and welded back here. So I'm hoping to make it nice and clean and neat before it's done. Like I said, there's a modification that needs to be done. And so far, that's it. There was some concerns if you read through the instructions on the kit about over here on this side. If you can see back in there, there's right on the bell housing up to the back. They said that might need to be given some relief. I found that not to be the case on my car. There's easily a 1/4 inch between the bolt and the body. And there's really no reason to go any further than that because the drivetrain itself is not going to move forward and backwards. But also, you're not gaining anything by giving yourself any space because that bolt would never come out. You never give yourself enough space to think you were going to get that bolt out, like to separate the tranny and the engine separately. This did drop in together. I will pull it out together, and that is the plan. So other than maybe having to do a little bit of modifications to my gas pedal lever inside the car, I don't know if I can get a good shot of that or not, but I will try. Let me see. Yeah. So as you can see, there's some rust in here, but with this gas pedal, it goes against the rest there. And if you can see up top where the cable actually attached to it and goes through, it would sit up like this, you know. So the modification might have to be the stop down here, but like I said, I don't want to distort this area up in here on the other side of this because of that. I'd like to keep it as functional without modifying any of that as I can. And I'll say this, I don't know, because like I said, I've looked for other videos about this process, this particular process, and I haven't seen them. So maybe this will help somebody as they see me walk through it. There's a couple other things I want to show you. All right, I just realized after I finished talking about the engine mounts and what I'm doing to modify the header, it clicked in my head that there's a very good thing that I want to bring to your attention just so you don't run into what I ran into. So when I pulled this motor out of the Camaro, you can pull the exhaust manifolds off of it. They're, you know, obviously aren't going to be reused. And if the motor was intact, the way mine was intact, one thing that was in place here that you don't see is the oil dipstick tube, and it goes in here just like this down in that hole. But here's the thing, is that this dipstick tube has to come out of the way in order for the header to be bolted in, and then this would slide in behind it. And I tried every which way, and I did not want to destroy this dipstick tube. I didn't want to bend it, I didn't want to tweak it too much. I might have been able to get it in there, but as it is, this dipstick tube had to come out for me to be able to get my header bolted up and see what my clearances were going to be. So here's the thing. This thing had been in there since 1995, and it was frozen in the block. So I tried a bunch of different ways to try and twist it, soak it, get it in out of there, and it was not coming out. So what I ended up doing with the motor sitting here in the car is I dropped the oil pan. I left the oil pan, it was intact, all the bolts. I dropped the oil pan to be able to lightly tap and work this dipstick tube out of the block. So I put a couple bolts back in the oil pan just so it's setting up in place. And this motor is going to be completely gone through. I mean, it's a 200,000 mile motor. Yes, it ran good. I had no problems with the performance of it, but it's worn out. So this motor will be gone through completely before I put it back in the car. But this dipstick tube had to come out. And so just my pointer is get the dipstick tube out of the motor before you set the motor in the car, because it will be a lot easier to do it on an engine stand or hanging in the air on a hoist, because the oil pan would not come completely off the car. I had to just try and lower it just enough to work my way in there and get it out. I did get the dipstick out. And another thing that might be made aware of, the reason why you won't want to destroy this, because I searched high and low for this particular dipstick tube, and it has been discontinued from General Motors. I found the part number for it, but I could not find it anywhere. So I'm glad I salvaged this. It's in really good shape. I'm going to keep track of it for sure. But that's another thing that I wanted to bring to your attention when you're doing this. Just pull your dipstick out, your dipstick tube out before you put the motor in, so that way you can test fit your headers right. There's one more thing I want to show you too. Let me get this car in the air. Okay, here's another modification that I want to show you that just you need to be aware of, when you dive into this. This is the GM T5 transmission, and from the factory it has your typical shift fork, but with this transmission the slave cylinder is mounted to this bracket, and you can't see it because I've cut it away, but from here and here, part of the bracket, it comes out, and then there's two studs, and so the slave cylinder mounts back here, and the tube would go up to the master cylinder. So because this is going to be converted to an internal slave cylinder in the kit, the slave cylinder will now mount onto the front bearing retainer and be bolted inside the transmission. This bracket can go away. This shift fork is going to go away. It won't be necessary at all. So you're going to just have a hole there in the transmission side of it. Of course, that's where your the new line, the hydraulic line, is going to come out from the internal slave cylinder. But you can see that bracket had to be cut to get the transmission to fit inside the body there. So just a pointer before you get started trying to drop your engine and transmission into your car, know that that needs to be cut or it won't fit. Another thing that's interesting is that with the Camaro, that oil filter housing right there, it's 90 degrees. It comes out and turns 90, and then the motor, the oil filter points towards the back of the engine. So what they have you do is take the 90 off, and then you're going to use the threaded piece and thread it into the block, and you're actually going to, that's going to be your surface for your new oil filter. It will just screw straight onto the block, and then it'll be sitting just outside the header. So just something else that you might just add to what's going on and wondering how things go if you just, depending on how you acquire your V6 and your transmission. I want to show you the cross member. This cross member is a solid plate steel. It's got an arc in it, made that way with the relief in it there for the transmission, and it bolts right where the factory MGB transmission cross member bolts to. So it's really straightforward. You use the same bolts. You use a different transmission mount than what comes on the Camaro. It's a little bit lower for the clearance for the transmission to the tunnel up top, but it bolts in really nice. It works well. The transmission tail shaft, plenty of room in there, both sides. I've already test fitted my new drive shaft that has the yoke that goes into this GM transmission, and it's a nice unit. Maybe I'll get it out and show it in another video, but I've already test fitted it. It bolts in there nice. It fits great. I'm real happy with that. Like I said, it's a very thought out kit because there's been so many of them been done. But I will continue on, and as I come up with things or want to show you something, my progress, I will shoot another video if anybody's interested. But if anybody wants to dive into a V6 conversion on an MGB, these are just things that I've come across, like I said, that I could not find any information on. You do get a packet with some directions and instructions with it, but it is, I don't know, for me, I'm a visual learner, so this is what I like. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you found this informative, and I look forward to doing some more.